The first question I guess we have to deal with is, what exactly is SharePoint? Well, SharePoint 2013 is the spot for organizing your company's teams, your company's projects, for storing your essential data, and safely sharing ideas. It's also yours and your teammates' collaboration tool where you can schedule, edit, plan, discuss, all with a few clicks in one convenient online site that will help you be productive and help you collaborate. So that's the headline, if you like. We're going to spend the next hour looking at exactly what SharePoint can do for you. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. We're currently looking at a intranet site for a fictitious company called Contoso. And the first thing to note is the navigation. And if you look at the very top of the page, you'll see a dark blue bar that goes across most of the screen. This is the global bar. On the left, it says Office 365, the name of the service. And further across, it gives me access to my Outlook email, my calendar, my people contacts, my Yammer feed, my OneDrive, which we'll come back to later, and also my sites. And when I click on sites, that's how I get through to the internet site here for Contoso. So that's the global link bar at the top, which you'll see throughout your Office 365 experience. Importantly, to the right, there is also a small gear card, which I'm going to click on now, and that contains a lot of menu options that you might need, and which we'll come back to later. So next on the navigation is the bar across the top of the page where it says Internet Home, News, Sales, Human Resources, etc. And you can see as I highlight each one, there's further options dropping down from the menu for me to choose from. And if I choose one of those options, then that activates the options on the left-hand side where we have About, Executive Team, Culture, Corporate Outings. And the great thing about SharePoint is it's designed to be web publishing for people who aren't web developers. So you really can make changes yourself very easily if you need to. So here we can click on Edit Links. And if I wanted to, I could use the Edit Links tool to remove any of the links I have here on the left-hand side if I didn't need them, or to add in additional links that I wanted to have available on my intranet site. Hopefully now you can see I have a cross sign next to each link. I would just click on that, and then that will get rid of the link. Okay. Now let's have a look at a particular site. Let's look at the fundraising site. Just taking a moment to load here. And the first thing we're going to look at are called the ribbons. And the ribbons are your options, a bit like the ribbons you get in Word and Excel that appear at the top of the page. And you'll see here we have the word browse and the word page. If I click on page, then the ribbon drops down and I can choose options here related to the page, such as making it my home page or changing the view or setting up an alert on this page so that I'm emailed whenever there's a change made to the page. So these are all operations I can make on the page. And to get rid of the page ribbon, we click on the Browse button again, and it goes away. But the interesting thing with the ribbon is it changes depending on what you have on the page. So if I now click on the word Documents on the left-hand side, I'll be taken into the document library for this part of the site. And now we'll see that the ribbon has changed, and now we'll have one for files and one for library. Just waiting for that to appear now. Okay, so what this is here is called a document library. So you have two types of information presented to you on SharePoint. You have straightforward web pages, which you might be familiar with, and also you have libraries of information, which are either lists of data or lists of documents that you can open, view, edit, or manipulate in some way. And this is a document library, so we have the library option up here where we can change things. Again, we can set up an alert for any changes, and we can also create a new view, which we'll do in a moment. And then on the Files tab, the Files ribbon next to it, we can upload a document, create a new folder, and so on and so forth, all operations related to the files. You'll see that the options to check out and check in are grayed out because I don't have a file selected. If I select a file here, the company OneDrive file, now if I go back to files, you'll see that the options checking out is now available, so I'm going to check it out. And what the checkout does basically is it reserves the document for you to make edits to it. No, that didn't work. Basically, when you check out the document, it's a bit like checking out a library book. Only you can make changes to it or read it, and then when you finish with it, you check it back in. And it's a way of doing edit or version or edit control on a document, so that you only have one person editing it at once. Okay. Let's go back now to the library view, and let's create a new view so we can see how we can look at this list in a different way. There's several different views here. You can have a calendar view, a standard view, you can do a Gantt chart, but we're going to do a regular datasheet view, which you could think of as sort of a bit like in a table or an Excel sheet view. Basically, I'm going to pick out different properties of the files and display them in different ways. Doesn't make much difference at the moment because we only have one file in the library, but if you had 100 files in the library, then the way that you present them can make a difference to how effectively you can work with them. Okay, I'm not going to make it the default view. I will make it a personal view because I only want it to apply to myself. And I'm going to add in a few things here. I'd like to see the created by column. I would like to see the name linked to the document. And I'd like to see the version number and also the file size. So those are additional columns that are not in the standard view that I've decided to add in. And then at the bottom I can do some other logic. For example, I could only show documents which had the word Peter in the title if I wanted to. And then once I finish with all that choices, I can click on OK. And now I've created a new view that's a new way of me looking at the data that I have available to me. So now you see we have more of a table view. I have my checked out to, my created by, my file size, my version. All the information that I wanted is now available to me in this view. And because it's a table, I can sort by it. So I can sort by who created it, for example, in ascending or descending order. So again, if I have hundreds of documents, then this is a way to organize them in the way that I want best. So that's a look at somebody else's sites and how they've organized their sites. But how about would you create your own site? And why would you want to create a site? Well, let's click on sites up here and take a look. A site is a great way of isolating information into different areas. So each site has its own documents and images in its documents library. It has its own data lists, has its own OneNote notebook. You can have a unique calendar on the site, and so on and so forth. So it's a great way of having a site for each and every team in your organization so they can each focus on what it is they need to do. So let's create a new site here. I clicked on the sites at the top, and now I'm in my sites area where I can see a couple of sites that are highlighted. And beneath that, I have the list of sites that I'm following. I'm going to click on new site at the top. And I'm going to give it an unimaginative name. And underneath it shows you the URL that will be given to the site. It sometimes takes a moment or two, but even though it takes a moment or two, it's still a very simple way to create a website that can be used by your whole team. Okay, great. And there we have it. What was it, about 60 seconds maybe? And now we have a new site just for our team, and we can start adding things to this site to make it more functional. So we have a number of blue tiles here on the left-hand side. we have share your site. I can click on this and then I can fill out a box to invite people by their names if they're internal people, or email addresses if they're external, and I can send them an invite and offer them the ability to view the site and to join in its features. If I'm working on a deadline, I can get tasks lists and timelines and calendars added to the site. And if I have lots of documents I need to organize, I can add document lists and libraries. I can also change the style of the site. This is very important if you have people who are members of multiple teams, because if they're all blue, then it all starts to look the same and it's hard to differentiate between the sites. So picking a different style for each site can visually separate them. So I like orange, so let's choose the orange one. And we're going to click on here where it says try it out. I could change more options here, such as the fonts, for example, but I'm going to leave those as the default. And click it here, try it out. And basically this will show me what it will look like, and then if I like it, I can accept it and carry on. Okay, yes, let's keep it. And the other thing that you can do with sites is you can have a mailbox for the site that is actually called a site mailbox. So I'm going to click on this now, and I'm going to choose to add a site mailbox. As it says here, the site mailbox helps you keep email and documents close together by connecting your site to an Exchange mailbox. And basically, you can view the documents and the emails either in Exchange Outlook or within SharePoint. Now, this does take a while for it to be added, so we won't see it just yet, but maybe we'll come back at the end and take another look for it. And the concept behind the site mailbox is that normally when you have people working on projects, there's a lot of information that goes backwards and forwards via email, but sometimes that email gets deleted by its owners, or it gets lost, or somebody leaves the company and the email is no more. So valuable information about a project is lost because it wasn't collected by email when it was flying backwards and forwards. So what you can do with the site mailbox is that when you email somebody about a project, you can add the site mailbox to the CC list or to a distribution list, so the site mailbox always gets a copy of every email and every attachment that carries on during the course of the project or the teamwork. Okay, let's move on. And now let's see how we can actually add some documents to a site. Let's go into the document library. And you'll see this is blank because it's a brand new site. So we're going to click on upload here. And then I'm going to browse and go to my sample files. And I think this is the one I want. Event planning process diagram. So I click on the file, I click on OK, and it uploads automatically. And it's there already. So that's one way of adding files to a site. If I wanted to do a drag and drop, then I can bring the sample files onto the screen like so. And I can select the file. Let's go for this one. Just drag it across and drop here. I could do this with one file, or I could do it with 10 files, and it'll still upload them all to the same document library. You'll notice here that it says it's doing a move, but in fact it actually does a copy. So when I let go, the document will appear in the document library on the SharePoint site, but it will also remain in the sample files folder on the screen. There you go, you see that it's still now in both places. So let's minimize that. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the features that you get with a document library. So one thing that's appeared now is the ellipses or the three dots. You'll see this quite often throughout the SharePoint site. And if you click on them, basically it's a way to get more options. And one thing you'll see here is that when you click on a file, you get some options on to edit or share it, but also it gives you a preview of the contents of the file. And if there's more than one page or booklet in the file, you can actually scroll through and see all of the pages or all of the spreadsheets and see what information is actually within the file. So you don't have to waste time opening the file if you're not sure it's the right one. You can just click on the three dots and see a brief preview, and then you can quickly determine whether it's the one that you need to open. Okay. We mentioned earlier checking out documents and checking in documents, and that is a great way to control versions if you have to keep those tight. But sometimes you want to have multiple people working on a document at the same time, and the great news is that SharePoint does support co-authoring by multiple authors at the same time. So let's have a look at how this can work. I'm going to switch here now to my OneDrive. Give me a second. Thank you. And within my OneDrive, I have a document that I prepared earlier, and I'll demonstrate to you how we can do multiple authoring on that document. The concept here is that normally in the past, when people have worked on documents, let's say a team of 5 people working on one document, you would start off with the document with one person, they would email it to the other 4, 2 different people would edit it, they would email it back, you'd end up with a flood of emails, and normally what happens is the document diverges, where you have 2 or 3 different iterations or versions of the document, each being edited separately, and at the very end of the process, you have to spend time or waste time bringing all the documents back together into one coherent whole. Well, the idea with SharePoint is instead of emailing documents around, you just put the document in one place and everybody goes to that document and accesses it, and there's only ever one version of the document that exists, as well as backups, of course, but there's only one major version of the document, and then that way you don't have to worry about the versions diverging and going off in different directions. It's much more efficient, and it allows people to work in parallel rather than sequentially. So here we have the 2014 projects plan, and if I click on the dots again, I see a preview of what's in the file. I know that's the file I want now, so I'm going to click on the file name to open it. If I want to edit the document, I have to come up here to the edit menu. But before we do that, let me go to my other screen and type in some text. Now we can see that somebody else on my other computer is typing in information, and it's going to appear on our screen shortly, and there it goes. Not only does it appear on the screen, but we get a red marker next to the paragraph, which tells us who it is that's editing that paragraph. So currently there's me and somebody else working on this document at the same time, just to show you my text. So I can edit the document at the same time as somebody else can. In fact, you can have up to 10 people editing the document at any one time, and that number 10 is actually itself configurable. You can move it up or down if you wanted to. You might wonder what happens when people try and type over each other. Well, Word has a way to detect that, and that is by locking the paragraph that you're working on. So if I'm typing a paragraph, nobody else can delete that paragraph whilst I'm typing it within Word. You can also do co-authoring and multiple authoring in Excel and also in PowerPoint. In Excel, it locks the cell that you're on, and nobody else can edit the cell that you're working on. And in PowerPoint, it locks the slide that you're working on. So if I'm working on slide 1, nobody else can work on slide 1 until I finish. So by doing the lock-in, that's how SharePoint prevents you from overwriting each other's work as it's being typed in. Okay, let's move on to our next example. Oh, I should mention mobile devices. Because SharePoint 2013 is designed to work on many different types of mobile devices and browsers, It does include a feature called Mobile Browser View that checks if the mobile browser you're using can support HTML5. If your browser does support HTML5, then a contemporary mobile view is shown. If it doesn't, then a classic view is shown. And you can get great views of SharePoint sites on Windows phones and iPhones, for example, as well as many tablets. Okay, so let's go back to the team site we were working on earlier. So I'm going to just save this. In fact, you'll notice that actually I don't have to save it, I just have to edit it, because when you're using SharePoint online to edit a document online, it saves it automatically for you as it goes along. So all you have to do is edit it and return back to SharePoint, and it automatically saves it for you. Nice little feature there. So let's go back to Sites. And then we'll find our team site again. Just waiting here for it to display. Here it is, our team sites in the site that I'm following. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit the site itself. So I'm going to actually edit the home page for the site, and I'm going to insert some video into the site, and we'll see how we can use video as part of the intranet site. So here is a page and not a library. So we have the page ribbon up here on the left, and on the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side, we have the word edit in the top right corner. And if I click on this, then I can choose to insert a new video. Go to the Insert tab and choose Video and Audio, and then I'm going to choose to load that from my computer, but I could load it from these other sources as well. Let's browse my sample files. And here is my new employee training video, and I want to have this on my site so I can show it to all our new employees. They're very simple here to put video on a web page. No programming or designing needed. You just choose to edit, choose to insert, select the file, and then it loads it for you. So again, SharePoint really does make website design and creation very simple and very accessible to everybody. Okay. Now I've clicked on the web part, it shows me the video, I can stop it now, and I have some options up here. I can choose to start it automatically when the page is first displayed, and I can choose to have it looped until somebody stops it. I can also change the size of the video, and so on and so forth. And I can also change the image that appears to the front page of the video by selecting a different image that would appear here in the frame. So that's that. And if I wanted to make the web part bigger, then I would just click on Save Here, and then I could edit the web part and make it larger so we could see the video in a larger screen. There we go, now that's saved, and because of the options I chose, this is going to play continuously on a loop until we get bored with it, and we click on Stop. There we go. So again, very easy to put media onto web pages. Okay. Next, we're going to have a look at another great feature of Office 365, which is called OneDrive for Business. Now, this used to be called SkyDrive, but they had to rename it. So you may have heard people in the past refer to SkyDrive, but SkyDrive is now OneDrive, and the version for Office 365 is called OneDrive for Business. And let's go to that now. Click on OneDrive at the top on the bar that's now orange. So here you see we have a sync button here, and I could choose to sync the files in my OneDrive with my local computer so that when I was offline, I could still have access to those files. and then OneDrive for Business would automatically upload the changes when I was next reconnected to the internet. So let's have a look at this main SharePoint site, the intranet site, and we'll see how we can do that with the sales documents. Let's go to Sales and Document Center. And here we have on the left-hand side, we have Documents. And now I'm in a library, I can choose to sync it. So I just click on Sync. And it asks me, do I want to sync this library to my device for easy access? Sync now. Sure. Sync now. And you'll see here it mentions the phrase Microsoft SkyDrive Pro, and that's because the software still has the old name within it. But just remember that SkyDrive is now OneDrive. And it tells me here the document, the library that it's going to sync, and it tells me where it's going to put them. I just click on Sync Now, and then the documents will be synced to my local drive, and I can access them very easily. You'll see them all loading up slowly as they download. And a green circle with a white check mark means that it's synchronized properly and downloaded correctly. So that looks like they all went down correctly. Now I can disconnect my laptop from the network. I can go on a plane where I have no internet connection. I can edit the documents. And then when I land at the other end and connect to a wireless network, the changes will be loaded back up to the SharePoint site on the internet. And that's one of the other great things about SharePoint that I didn't mention in the introduction, and that is that SharePoint Online with Office 365 really does give you global access to your information. Gone are the days where you had your information on file servers and you could only access them from the corporate office, or if you could get a VPN connection set up somehow. Now, anywhere you have an internet connection, you can connect to SharePoint Online and get access to your documents, meaning that people can work much more flexibly, both in terms of time and in terms of geographic location. Let's see what we can look at next. Yes, let's have a look at community sites. So we had to look earlier at creating a team site, and now we're going to create a community site, which is just another type of intranet site or website that has different functionality designed around communities, where you might be needing to discuss things or ask and answer questions between yourselves. So let's call it let's do this another way instead. Let's do this through the settings button and do site contents and add a new site. I'll get more options here. So okay, description. And for my team site, I'm going to choose that's interesting. That didn't happen earlier. There should be an option there for community sites. It isn't there, but I'll briefly describe you what it does. A community site basically is a site that has information, so that has message boards or chat boards where you can exchange information, ideas, and questions. Let's have a look at one that I did earlier. And then we'll be able to have a better look at what it looks like. Here we have the intern community site that I created earlier. And you'll see here that if I click on categories, I see there's a couple of different categories. open for discussion. I can create a new category. Um, okay. So now I have a new area of discussion, a new category, and if I click on the category, then it will show me all the questions within that category. Here are the recent questions. Does anybody know our Microsoft Sales account number? Okay, and we can see at the top that that was in the category procurement issues. People can like it, they can reply to it, a bit like a social media site. You can pass the information backwards and forwards. You can also create badges, or you can award people badges based on how much they contributed to the site. And you can have them earn points if you want to in a system that increases and shows other people how much they've asked and answered questions on the site and how much they're contributing to the community, also known as their reputation settings. So those are some of the things that you can do with a community site. It's great for finding out the business questions that need to be asked because people will ask all their questions on this site, and then you can go through and search through them and organize them, and you can see what questions are most important to your colleagues and your team workers. Now we're going to have a look at a project site. So let's go back to sites button up here, and we're going to go with site content. And new subsite. And here we're going to choose a project site. So a name for the URL for the site. I could use anything. What you'll probably want to do is have some sort of naming convention for your URLs so that it doesn't get too messy when you have lots of different sites. And then I'm going to choose project site. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to choose the option here to have the top link bar from the parent site to make the navigation easier. We'll have a common navigation bar at the top. Just wait a few moments for that to load up and create. So again, like the other sites, we have the blue tiles, which allow us to add in different aspects such as document libraries, task lists and calendars, change the style and the look of the sites, and also create an email site mailbox, which, as we discussed before, allows you to create an email mailbox specifically to this website to house information held in emails and email attachments. And because it's a project site, we have a project summary at the top, and editing that is as simple as clicking on edit. In a milestone 1, we'll have it due next week, and we'll assign this to Molly. And because this is Office 365, we have a number of accounts here already, and Molly's one of them. So as I start typing her name pops up, and I can just click on it to complete it. Okay, then when that's done, click on stop editing this list. And now we have milestone 1 on our task list. We go back to home. We can see that the first milestone is due in 8 days. Okay, so it gives you a very upfront view of what's happening on the project, and you can add on other things. You can add in video as well if you wanted to, just like we did for the other site. Okay. Let's go back to the team site that we started with earlier. So to do that, we go to our blue navigation bar at the top and we click on sites. See the sites that we're following. And there we should have the site that we call our team site. There's it gone. There it is, our team site. And I want to actually edit the main page, so I'm going to click on edit in the top right corner. You can see our video is looping because of how we configured it earlier. Let me stop that video before it plays. So let's go on to edit and then on to insert, and we're going to insert a web part, media and content. Content editor. So what we're going to demonstrate here using the content editor is that basically you can now transfer settings from something like Word directly into a website. So in the past, if you wrote your document in Word and you wanted to put it into your website, when you copied and pasted it across, it tended to look messy and things like tables just didn't come out at all. So it just wasn't a happy experience, and basically you had to rewrite it within your web browser design software. Whereas now you can copy and paste directly from Word into this form on the SharePoint site, and it should maintain all the settings. And let me find the sample document called Latin to me. Here's the sample document, all in Latin. For some reason I don't understand. Let's select that and choose copy. And now let's come back to our content editor. I'll do Control V. Allow access to the pasting. And now you'll see that we pasted the content from the Word documents straight into the web page, and the table ABC123 has come out perfectly well, just as it was in the original. All the bold is there as well, the titles and the headings are all there, so it really does look just like it did in the Word document, and we don't have to rewrite anything. It's just another way that SharePoint makes it easy for you to author your own web pages and author your own sites. Now let's have a look at OneNote Notebook. Not a lot of people use one, or not a lot of people are familiar with OneNote, but OneNote really is a hidden gem within Office 365. It's a great little tool that allows you to take notes on anything that you like, whether it is notes from a meeting that you're attending, whether it's study notes, notes for a project, whatever you want to take notes and organize. OneNote is a great tool to use to do that. And every time you create a team site, you get a free OneNote notebook, which we see over here on the left-hand side. Before I do all that, I have to click on Save to save the changes I just made when I pasted in the Word document. So I click on Save in the upper right corner, and I stop the video again. And now on the left-hand side, I see I have Home, and then I have Notebook. And adding pages here as much as I want. You get the idea. Basically, I can create notebooks, I can add pages of information, and all that is automatically saved. As I mentioned before with Word, when you're using the online editing tools within SharePoint and Office 365, the changes that you make are saved automatically. So all I have to do if I want to save those changes is just choose Edit, and the changes will be saved automatically. And just like Word, we can have multiple authoring at the same time. So whilst I'm editing the OneNote page, somebody else can be adding in information or reading it at the same time as well. let's go back in.
Wanted to do a quick time check. We've got about 10 minutes left if we still want to leave time at the end for questions.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. Okay, great. So let's go back and have another look at the notebook. And we can see what we saved it earlier is still there, and we can paste in information from our Word document. Again, you can see it looks great. All the formatting came across nicely. So just a great tool for using for taking notes. And the next thing we're going to look at is how we can integrate Excel services within our website. Excel services is one of those technologies that enables you to view and interact with Excel workbooks that are being published to SharePoint sites. For example, you might have a annual or a weekly sales review document that totals up the sales for the week, and you might publish that to your SharePoint site and make it available to both your internal employees and also third-party contacts over the internet as well. And you may want that information to be available to other people. So let's see how we can add in an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going up to the settings button here in the top right, and I'm going to choose to add a page. I call the page Excel. And then I'm going to choose Insert, and I'm going to choose this time to insert a web part. And under Business Data, I'm going to choose Excel Web Access, which basically is the version of Excel that runs within a web browser. Now I'm going to click on here to open the spreadsheet that I uploaded to my document site earlier on. Just waiting for that to load. Okay. Let's try that one more time. Well, I'm having some problems here with loading the Excel spreadsheet, but just to let you know, basically the spreadsheet was a series of sales figures with a chart, and you could basically review it and use it within the web browser without having to actually have Excel installed. And we're going to try something similar using Visio diagramming software as well. So let's try that now. So we're going to add another page called Visio. We're going to choose to insert and insert a web part. We can choose business data and then Visio Web Access, which is the version of Visio that runs within a web browser. And I'm going to click on Add and click here to open the tool pane. And for some reason it's not opening the tool pane, but the same thing works again, is you load up the Visio diagram, you save it, and then it appears within a web page for anybody to view and use. And the great thing with that is that you don't have to have Visio installed on your own machine in order to be able to view and use it within the web browser. So the last thing I want to have a look at before we go to questions is the team site that we started with earlier on. And we'll see if that mailbox got created or not. Let's go to sites at the top. Our team site. On the left-hand side, we have mailbox. Let's stop the video. So it's telling us it's still creating the mailbox. Basically, what this will do when it's finished creating it is we will have a separate mailbox here that we can send emails to and that we can access from our team site. And to get back to our team site, we click on the name of the site on the upper left-hand corner here. And that will take us back to our SharePoint site. And then later on, we could come back and have a look at the mailbox to see if it's finished configuring it. So that brings to a close all I have for the time being on SharePoint and Office 365. I hope it's been useful to you, and I'd like to open the floor up to questions.
Peter, there were some questions in the chat window early on about accessing SharePoint through mobile devices.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You can access SharePoint through mobile devices, the iPad and the iPhone, for example, Android phones. You can get a sort of a cut down modern interface experience. Obviously, the screen's smaller, but other than that, you do get quite a bit of functionality, and you can do some editing as well.
What about document sync options in SharePoint? It looks like Chris Justice was asking about syncing files with other programs like Box and Dropbox.
I'm not aware of any functionality to sync with the other tools like Dropbox and Box, because SharePoint's OneDrive basically is Microsoft's version of those tools. But certainly the OneDrive does come with 25 gigabytes of storage with your standard Office 365 subscription, so you do get a lot of storage, a lot of space to sync those files. And the only thing you have to be wary of is if you sync too many SharePoint libraries, then you might fill up space on your own laptop, especially if you have a small laptop with a small drive. You've got to be careful not to sync too many SharePoint libraries, otherwise you'll run out of space and then the syncing will start to fail.
Okay. That might answer Tanya's question about loading Office 365 on Samsung devices. I don't know of any specific manufacturer issues, but maybe you could talk to that.
I'm not aware of any manufacturer issues. Office 365 really is very agnostic in terms of the browser, for example. It works with Firefox and Chrome. It works with Safari on the Mac, as well as Chrome and Firefox on the Mac. It really is very widespread in its applicability.
What about SharePoint and OneDrive syncing capabilities?
Your OneDrive will sync, if you like, as a special type of SharePoint document library. So your OneDrive will sync in one block, and then any SharePoint libraries that you choose to sync will also sync separately, so that when you look at your computer, you'll see different areas for each of them, and you can easily work out which one is which and get to the right one to locate your documents.
Okay. Those are the questions that I see in the chat window at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we can give people back a little bit of time on the end here. If you want to just wrap us up, I'm going to stop the recording.